Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's call, live questions and answers with Magdalena. In case you're new to this, my name is Magdalena. I'm the founder of Hormones Balance, a nutrition practice dedicated to helping women rebalance their hormones with nutrition, with food, with good sleep, and a lot of self-love. So the way we typically do these calls is that I'll hang out here with you for about 40 to 45 minutes, maybe sometimes an hour if there's a lot of really good questions or a special topic. And I like to focus on, as much as I take your questions and I want to answer them, and some of them I do it live, and some of you are gonna be missing the live transmission, so you're gonna be doing a replay. Post a question below nevertheless, because my team consolidates the questions and then I get them before the next call, and then so I can answer them. Hi there, Marcy from Arkansas. Yeah, thanks about my Thanksgiving. I hope you had a great one. I'll tell you in a second about my Thanksgiving. It was a little bit different than usual. So yeah, so today is actually the last call of the year for us, because I'm going to be taking December off. It's been a very, very intense year this year. My team and I have worked really hard. I got a book deal, so I just finished developing, hi Sandy, I just finished developing 140 recipes. And over the next few months, I'm going to be focusing on writing the first part of the book, which is the context. The cookbook is called Cooking for Hormone Balance. So it's just been a really intense year. Also changing a lot of things in my business and moving around a lot, and from California to Iceland, from Iceland to Boulder, where I am right now, Colorado. So just a lot of changes, also personal changes. So it feels like December is really what I need to take the time off and just focus on just being. Hi everyone, hi Elena, Lovelace. So somebody asked just now about happy Thanksgiving. Well, about Thanksgiving. I hope you had a great one. Hello from Colorado Springs. So Lee and I are close to each other. Yeah, so I actually decided to do fasting. So I've been doing a pretty intense fast I'm on day 6 today. So no solid foods whatsoever, only water, and salt water in the morning, lemon water, some parts of the day, a touch of maple syrup. I'm kind of doing the mustard cleanse, but with significantly less maple syrup in it, just because I feel the amounts they recommend are just way too high. And so for those, I'm wondering if anyone here has done a fast before. Like a full-on fast. So I'm not talking about a detox. Some of you have done my thyroid detox, which is also a really great program. I do not recommend doing a full-on fast, a water fast, if you have never fasted before, if you've never detoxed before, or if you have been eating quite a lot of bad foods and still struggle with your digestion and things like that. It's a really deep process, and for somebody who's not prepared going into that, will just give you a lot of different side effects. It's not going to be a pleasant experience. I haven't had so far, I mean, I'm on day 6 today, and tomorrow is going to be my last day. I haven't had any significant changes, as in, or side effects, I should say. I haven't been having headaches or, huge energy drops. I've been, in fact, I'll tell you about the benefits in a second. I think it's just a great thing to do. See, I've worked on those 140 recipes really hard. Those are not recipes that are, taken from the internet, modified, and then boom, put in a book, right? Those are recipes that I'm experimenting with a lot of ingredients that there are no recipes out there for, just to help you, develop foods or develop recipes and putting on a table that tastes really, really good, but are not full of nuts. And there's so many people now who can't tolerate almond flour and all that, cashew butters and stuff like that. So what do? How do you substitute those, right? And that's what I've been working on really hard. And when I finished doing the recipes, I was really ready to press the reset button. And I felt, I just need to go full into to really reset everything. And unfortunately, Thanksgiving happened in the middle of it. So I ended up declining all the Thanksgiving offers and just staying at home and going for a beautiful hike yesterday, and just being reflective, just being with it. And so it was a pretty cool experience, and I have no regrets whatsoever of doing that. But I'm wondering, how did your Thanksgiving go? And actually, I want to talk a little bit about that today, the conversations at a dinner table with family, and what happens with with that. So for those of you who are listening on replay, post your questions down below this video, and I'll answer them when I come back in January. We're going to be meeting again in the second week of January. My birthday is in the first week of January. Terrible time to have a birthday because everybody's just so hungover and so tired of all the Thanksgiving, all the New Year partying. And my birthday is right after that. So, but that's okay. So I'm gonna be back on the 7th of January. Soon after that, we're gonna have our first call. You will know about it from our message on Facebook. So one more thing I want to just let you know. There's a really great documentary that received so much of positive feedback, and it's so relevant to so many of you, and has never been done in this format. And that's the movie called Betrayal. And my friend Tom O'Brien, Dr. Tom O'Brien, who many of you probably know him from having organized the Gluten Summit, which was a huge hit 3-4 years ago, has put so much of awareness about how damaging gluten can be to so many of us. He's moved on with his message to autoimmune diseases, and he created this beautiful documentary that, you know, it's gonna be, so they're making that available, episode 6 and 7, the last two, which are really powerful episodes. They're making that available over the weekend. So Friday, Saturday, and I think until Sunday, if I'm not right. No, I think I'm correct on that. They said weekend, so I'm assuming it's still end of Sunday. So watch it. I highly recommend it. In fact, you know, I'm gonna post the link above this video where you can watch if you haven't registered yet. It's just so he really goes into details of explaining the role of the digestion, the role of toxicity, the role of genetics, and how little of a role they can play in autoimmunity, but also you know, success stories which are so inspirational. And you know, those are interviews with doctors and specialists. Those are not, you know, it's not some woo-woo stuff or somebody making up stories. So if you have friends who are dealing with autoimmune diseases, who are really at the wit's end of what to do, they are put on you know, all sorts of medications, which most of the time with autoimmune diseases would be steroids and immune suppressants, which have horrendous impact on everything else. I mean, they destroy the liver. People can't sleep on that, right? A friend of mine has been diagnosed with lupus not long ago, and you know, and so she can't sleep. So they put her on, you know, and she's nauseous, right? So they put her on sleeping pills and anti-nauseous, you know, to remove the nausea. But then she's getting, you know, a lot of other side effects, like her skin is not really dry, right? So when she goes there and they put her topical stuff they give her for the skin, and it's just like this endless, you know what I'm talking about, right? It's this endless, you know, string of side effects that comes along with Western medication most of the time, not to mention the damage that it does to our liver. So really tag people to watch this movie, because I'll forward them the link, because it is just such an important movie, and it's for free. I mean, it's a free resource that you can watch on Netflix. You could, you know, if you wanted to. It's not available, of course, but it's available online. And, you know, and if you can do it this weekend, just buy it. It's such a small investment for what it is. It's also a great present for somebody who's struggling with an autoimmune disease. And, you know, sometimes one of the things I want to talk about today, I printed that out, my talking points, is how hard it is to sometimes tell our friends and family about changes they could be making. You know, that hello from Switzerland, Andrea. It's so hard to be telling people about the changes they should or could be making to feel better. Instead, I always find it much more helpful, you know, friends and family don't take advice from us, right? That's just a fact of life. Instead, what you could do is send them that video, you know, as a present, and saying, you know, from the bottom of my heart, I hope this is yet another tool you can add on to look at and see whether that helps you. Yeah, so that's that, and let me go over some of the questions from last week that you guys posted. If you're posting a question today, please keep it short. because it shows up on my phone for literally 3 seconds and then it disappears, and I can't go back to the questions as I'm doing live transmission. So Susan Staves, I think, says, I have never heard you talk about mushrooms. Are they okay for this for doing an elimination diet? Yeah, so I don't know what you're talking about, like ordinary mushrooms, like button mushrooms and porcinis and, you know, brown mushrooms, and yeah, they're all good. I mean, if you're struggling with candida, you might want to lay off those. And if you're talking about medicine, so they're great. Mushrooms are wonderful. Always cooked. You don't want to be eating them raw because they are fungi. But then, you know, then we have the medicinal mushrooms, things like chaga and reishi and lion's mane, and they are hugely therapeutic. You won't be eating them directly like, you know, like the way you eat ordinary mushrooms like porcinis or button mushrooms or portobellos. But medicinal mushrooms are wonderful in different teas, and I did talk about that in one of the previous calls. And I'm gonna post the link as well to, we have all the calls now consolidated on the page. So if you, sometimes, you know, you're asking questions about something I already talked about, and I'm gonna tell you, go back, and this was about 2-3 weeks ago, then you can look up that episode, okay? So yeah, so medicinal mushrooms are hugely great for, and I was showing a chaga mushroom, and we have a video coming up about chaga latte. And they are hugely in helping boost the immune system. People with cancer have great results doing medicinal mushrooms. They're just a real great, like, pick me up energetically. Just a wonderful addition to your daily diet, and they're great during an elimination diet as well. Cheryl Stanley asks, do you get mammograms? Do I do mammograms for myself? I don't, and it's a good question. It's a tricky issue, I have to say, because I have so many friends, you know, in the industry I respect, like real experts, and a mammogram is one of those that you hear people I really respect saying that is the same amount of radiation as going on an aeroplane, and there's other group of people saying that it is, you know, that is absolutely not true, and it does further damage. So I have decided that when I had breast lumps 2 years ago, I decided to go with a sonogram, and you gotta find somebody who's really specialized in that, who's really good at reading, understands things like lumps, for example. And then I coupled it up with a thermogram that I worked with a naturopath, and I felt like doing those two together gave me a really solid answer. And, you know, and then right after that, when I changed, I added a lot of flaxseed because I had estrogen dominance. I added a lot of flaxseed, started working harder on my liver, and all of that just went away. By the way, working on the liver is really important for estrogen dominance, right? It really can help with a lot of hormonal issues. And if you're feeling like, you know, you are ready to press the reset button maybe before Christmas or soon after Christmas, January, you're gonna be like, I'm so boozed out, I'm so oversugared, right? Then think about doing the thyroid detox. It's a really great program which I created. It's a 12-day program divided to first 5 days of a pre-detox. Then you enter in 5 days of a detox. You really ease yourself into it, so there's no shock to the body. And in the 5 days of detoxing, you can do gentle, which is you're still eating solids just in small amounts and specific foods, or you can do deep, which is basically only juicing and so there's no solid foods. And then the last 2 days is basically going back into eating solid foods in a certain order of reintroducing foods. So really well laid out program. It's called thyroid detox because that's how we started with it, but it's really for anybody who is having any hormonal issues. So if you go to thyroiddetox.com, there's a free workshop you can sign up for. Take a look and see if this is something that speaks to you, if you want to do this. And it's only $97, and it's a really great program. It also gives you access to our Thrivers group, Hormone Thrivers, which is a group I've created for anybody who purchased any of my programs. It's a thriving and very supportive community. I'm on there daily as well. Do you agree with, Janine is asking, Janine Berezan is asking, do you agree with B complex? Absolutely. B complex, you know, it has to be of a good brand as well. So I like supplements like from brands like Thorne, or Pure encapsulations. I like Designs for Health, you know, so those are some of the better brands. You can get all of them on Amazon. Yeah, B complex is huge for liver detoxification. B6 is huge in progesterone production. Most people are deficient of it. And just a quick note on that. How do you know you're deficient of B6? Does anybody know if you are deficient in vitamin B6? How do you know you're deficient? Do you guys know this part? So the answer is, let's see if anybody would know this. We have a very small group today because it is right after Thanksgiving, so I was actually kind of surprised we even have the people we have. So if you do not dream, or actually you do dream, if you don't recall your dreams, then, especially pleasant dreams, then you're probably deficient in vitamin B6. And when you go on B6, or the metabolized version of it is P5P, you will see how different you feel, and it's super helpful. It's a precursor for progesterone production as well. Robin Keith is asking, how can you tell if I have Hashimoto's? Yeah, so pretty simple. You got to ask your doctor to test for TPO, thyroid peroxidase antibodies, and anti-TGB, anti-thyroglobulin antibodies. It's all lined out what tests to get when you suspect you have thyroid issues in my thyroid diet starter kit, which you can find on thyroiddietcoach.com. Thyroiddietcoach.com. Okay, get that. Robin is also asking, is there a way of knowing if your body is digesting fats okay? That's a good question. Well, two main things is going to happen. One is, or three things actually. One is that every time you eat something fatty, like a piece of meat, or you eat bone marrow, or something that contains a lot of ghee and whatnot, you have a lot of digestive pain, and you feel like the food is sitting there forever. That shows you your body is not producing probably sufficient bile to break down the fats. Number two is that when you see fat in the stool, is either the water, you know, in the toilet bowl has got fat in it, or when you basically wipe, then you can feel the fat. That's another sign. The third one is when you have a lot of gallbladder problems. You do have pain. There's a whole article I wrote on gallbladder. Actually, sorry, I didn't write it. It's my friend Debbie wrote about a gallbladder and bile and how it's connected to hormones and how do you know about the symptoms. Check it out. Go to hormonesbalance.com. That's my website, hormones with an S, hormonesbalance.com. On the right top corner, there is a search button, search like a little icon, search for gallbladder, and the article will come out. What do you think about using Swedish bitters to help aid digestion? Laura Frank is asking. I actually love those. Anything bitter will promote bile release, and so that's really great. You know, and there's herbs in that, so that's all great. My only reservation with bitters is two things. One, there's alcohol in them because they're alcohol based. And so for people who are, for example, alcoholics, that's not a solution. And then number two, former alcoholics, number two is that if you're having candida, then you don't want to do alcohol during the candida cleanse, right? So those are the two main things I would say I'll be really careful about with Swedish bitters. Otherwise, they're really great. They do, however, have a different role than, you know, they help produce bile, but not necessarily do they increase the stomach acidity, right? Which we talked about, I think, a couple of weeks ago. So I would still suggest to combine that with apple cider vinegar or lemon, and nevertheless. So yeah, so those are the questions that came in last week, and whatever questions you have, post them, and I will answer them month and a half from now. It feels like a long time, but that's what we have. So, you know, one of the beauty of these calls is that they are pretty spontaneous. I don't have a schedule of things that I want to talk about. It's really the calls are for you. So tell me, what topic would you want me to cover? And so later when I scroll through the comments, there's a whole bunch of comments. I don't know, like if you just put two words in a couple of words, I don't know what you're referring to. So just put the next Q&A session, or the next Q&A I would like for you, Magdalena, I would like for you to talk about, and then give me the topic. Okay, so just make it a reference, a context, so I know what you're talking about. So, you know, there could be so many things. I mean, there could be, I already talked about quite a number of things in the past, like estrogen dominance and hot flashes, but what would you like me to talk about? Menopause, infertility, low progesterone levels, I already covered estrogen dominance, adrenal fatigue, you know, just tell me, what would you like to hear about? So let's move on with our special feature, and whatever questions you have, just post them. Sandy saying, like to see more vegan recipes. Yeah, Sandy, that would not be my site. I am not a vegan, and I don't find that a lot of people do well as vegans, and so that's why I'm not gonna be creating recipes specifically for vegans. Sorry. Is there a correlation between ovaries and liver pain? Susan is asking, I wouldn't say there's a direct correlation between those two, but you know, I talked about a liver. Hi, Liz from Ontario. So yeah, so the liver is hugely important in helping us metabolize hormones, meaning getting rid of the bad hormones, metabolize hormones, the used up hormones, in order to make space for new hormones. So, you know, like, would it be pain? And I mean, pain in the liver is not a good sign. I would definitely recommend for you to get a sonogram on that and getting your lab test done. Just the you know, complete metabolic panel will show you the ALT and AFT enzymes that are connected to the liver. Anything that's above 30, it's a sign that the liver is struggling. So yeah, I would work with the naturopath to really figure out what's going on. But you know, so I'm not sure if the pain is in the liver or is in the ovaries, but yeah, I mean, for sure you're going to have a well-functioning liver to have a good hormonal balance. There's no doubt about that. So one of the big topics that came out, you know, in our Hormone Thrivers group, the group I was mentioning to you, all my blood work comes back normal, Susan is saying. Yeah, so so I would recommend to do a couple of things. One is to, when you say normal, take a look at those two markers I talked about, AFT and ALT, because oftentimes they are normal according to the ranges in the lab results. But look at the numbers. You should be below 30, and this is just one way of looking at the information. This just shows you like one angle to look at when it comes to liver health. You know, one way to, actually a really great way of addressing any liver issues is do the thyroid detox with us if you haven't done it yet. You know, it's a really, we focus so much on supporting the liver throughout that period. A lot of the recipes and the teas are developed specifically for the liver, but I also talk about taking the time out to do things like liver packs with castor oil, and then how to apply magnesium oil and stuff like that to really help the liver. So if the results are not showing anything, but you have pain there, you know something is going on. Also, rule out that is the liver and not the gallbladder, because the gallbladder is sitting right under the liver. So sometimes it could be the pain coming from the gallbladder and not from the liver itself. And you can get that done by working with somebody getting a sonogram. Also, if you're having problems with gallbladder, look at the gallbladder article that I referenced earlier and to see if you have any of those signs. Because if you're having problems digesting fats, if you have a pain in your right shoulder, if you are feeling like your digestion isn't moving, that's good. Probably is a gallbladder issue and not a liver issue. So somebody's asking about bioidentical hormones safe for progesterone. Yeah, so a lot of women really regain their lives, you know, their ability to sleep, get rid of anxiety, being able to get pregnant, think straight. Those are all some of the, you know, the functions that really are very dependent on sufficient amounts of progesterone. So yeah, I'm a proponent of those, depending on your age though, right? So if you are like below 50 and you know, resorting to progesterone, I think it's a great temporary fix. But I still want to ask the question, why are your ovaries not producing its own progesterone sufficiently, right? And the answer could be in so many ways. If you guys want me to talk about progesterone, low progesterone, how to fix that, we can do that on next call. But one of them, you know, there's many reasons why the ovaries are suppressed in producing progesterone. or there is a lot of stress and cortisol is stealing the hormone called pregnenolone to produce progesterone. So, is that a, why are you low in the first place? I think that's the question that I would ask and want to work on. Herbs, supplements, and diet, or actually in the other order, diet, supplements, and herbs, in order to fix that first before going into progesterone cream. That would be my way of going about it. If you are above 50, that might be a little bit different story. If you have had a full, hysterectomy, that's right, so she's had her removed. So if you had your removed, then yes, that's something that definitely need to look into. I have to tell you, Marcy, we have a video about that. If you look at my website on the stories, hormonesbalance.com, and go on the stories, there is I think it's Sandy Cardi, I think is her name, and she talks about, but this is not an unusual case. It's for women who really take care of themselves, and they've got really balanced out adrenals, and a really good balance in the gut and the well-functioning liver. It's actually quite amazing that the body has the ability of switching. We have a fail-safe mechanism happening in the body, and the adrenals step in and they stop producing progesterone because the ovaries are missing. So Sandy's story was, she talks about in the video you can find that on the stories on my website. She talks about how she stopped taking any bioidentical hormones, and she's basically completely regained her health because of supporting her adrenals really actively. And so her adrenals are producing sufficient amount of progesterone. So that's something to look into, but as I think it's a temporary measure. I like bioidentical hormones, and that's something to definitely, if it helps you, is to stick with that. So today the topic I would like to cover is, the issue of conversations around a dinner table and family and friends and going out to parties and all of that. Welcome, Marcy. And it's kind of ironic, I feel, because December really should be the time of introversion, and it gets dark at 4 o'clock and you kind of want to be going home earlier, going to sleep earlier, and spending some time with your book, and just really, this is a time for real, being much more reclusive, right? Rather than, in summer we are outdoors all the time. It's a very expensive time. Winter is a very retractive time. But ironically, our culture has created, the kind of situations where there's a lot of parties. Well, it starts off with Thanksgiving, right? And then we move on to Christmas parties, and then there is Christmas, and there's New Year's. And so we end up just really quite having a lot of interactions with people. And with that can be very stressful. My friend who is a psychotherapist in New York, she said that December is her busiest time because there is so many people who struggle either with loneliness, being alone during this holiday season, or because there is so much of family tensions, there is so much of drama going on, there's so much of memories that come out for a lot of people that they really need help to deal with it. And so one of the things I wanted to offer you is to give you an idea, to talk about some of the tools that you can use when you find yourself having difficult conversations with or interactions with family members or close friends or colleagues or whoever who would start making comments about your diet. And I'm wondering here, has anybody experienced that before, where people go like you can feel, either they say it outright or you can feel that energy of them just being disapproving of what you're doing, right? Like, oh, gluten-free. It's like, what is this next diet that you are on, right? Like, what's the next fad that you are on? You're doing gluten-free. Why are you doing gluten-free? Why are you not eating grains? All of those questions, Andrea is saying yes often. So I wrote actually an article about that, and I'll post the article as well in here. But I want to give you a couple of tools that I found incredibly useful in my own lives, as well as the lives of many of my clients I used to work with privately. Elena is saying all the time, yeah. when it comes to dealing with this kind of interactions, and the reason why I talk how it's connected to your hormones, at the end of the day, my mission here is to help you manage that amount of stress that it comes with, right? Because it's stressful at the time of the conversation, and then you go home and you start thinking about it again, going, why did she say that to me? Doesn't she understand? Doesn't he understand, right? And this conversation that keeps going on, and all of that is incredibly stressful, and you're just burning your adrenals. And the truth is that, don't let somebody get to you. And so I want to give you a couple of tools. I wrote an article about that, so I'll post that. One of the things that I found really helpful is to really, first of all, is to share your, how you're feeling and why you're doing this. So if somebody asks, like, so what's up with this new thing now that you're doing, right? The first thing is to really share with somebody that, giving them a sense of context. And it's not to explain yourself, but it's just to help them understand where you're coming from. So just to give you an example, one thing that I found really helpful to say this to somebody who says, like, why are you not eating gluten? Like, why are you not eating this or that, right? Is saying this, I say, I had an autoimmune disease. Use your own whatever condition you have, right? In my case, it would be, I have an autoimmune disease. When I switched to a very targeted nutrition that requires me to get off gluten or dairy, it has really changed my life. I have no more foggy brain. I have no more fatigue. I can sleep way better. I don't have anxiety attacks. Now, when you say that to someone, it's very hard for them to continue attacking you because you just gave them the sense of context that this has really helped me, right? So this is one tool I want to, just to give them a context. And when you tell them you had a condition, it's a targeted nutrition, I find that these words somehow really work with people because then they realize it's not a diet, it's targeted nutrition. Don't say it's a diet. These things work terribly because people go like, we've lived with diets for the past 20 years and we know that these things don't work, right? So targeted nutrition, I feel like that's the killer word that really shuts everybody up and they go, whoa, okay, respect, right? Another tool that I found really helpful, and listen to these and tell me which ones do you find really helpful and what would you try the next time you find yourself in these interactions. Andrea is saying helpful. Thank you. Awesome. So let's talk about another one. Asking them for help and support. So imagine you are going to your in-laws, place, and typically the in-laws thing, it becomes so complicated because if the in-laws or your sister-in-law doesn't support it and she's the one cooking, and then then your husband gets in the way, kind of gets involved in this whole thing, and he's in a difficult situation because now is he like gonna defend you or defend them, right? It's these things are terrible and so painful. So one of the things that I found really helpful is just to ask for help and support. So imagine when you meet, when somebody approaches you on the street saying, could you help me, right? Or somebody, a mom with a baby, right? And she's asking, can you help me open the door, right? Or can you help me with a pram, with a stroller to get it up on a bus, right? You don't say no. You must be cold. A person must be totally cold-hearted, a psychopath to say no to things like that, right? Use the same effect to ask for help when it comes to planning a meal, especially when it's out of your control, and say, I had this autoimmune disease. This targeted nutrition has really made a huge difference. I would love to continue with that. Can you help me to get through the process? Can you help me in an upcoming event just to get to help me continue what I'm doing? Because that's when I'm getting really the best results and I feel really wonderful. I feel like I could get pregnant again. I feel like all my symptoms is diminishing. You know what they are. So asking for help, I think it's a really powerful one too. Another one I found really interesting is validating people's skepticism. It's kind of not a surprise that so many people can be skeptical about yet another diet that we are doing, right? Because they've heard it all. The beach diet, right? The South Beach diet, the Atkins diet, the Zone diet, and so many diets, and doing Weight Watchers, and the list goes on, right? And many people will be like, oh God, that's yet another thing she's doing. You can't blame them for that. But the interesting thing about is when somebody's really skeptical, a lot of the time is just the element of just validation. That's really, really important. That normalizes those feelings. So when somebody starts attacking you, instead of getting defensive, use another tool of just validation. And validation looks like this, saying, you know what, I know that it's not, I totally get this. Like, you know, everybody's on some kind of a diet. Everybody wants to lose weight. And I just want to share with you, this is not a diet that I'm doing. It's targeted nutrition that I'm doing. And it's perfectly normal for you to be feeling this way, that you feel like it's yet another diet. It's not a diet. It's a very targeted nutrition that I'm working on to get very different results. And it's medicinal in nature, right? And so validating that person's skepticism can really be a big shift for some of you. You know, another one which I think is super powerful, this is a huge one for a lot of us, I think, is bringing compassion to the conversation and remembering that their fears, you know, their fears is your fear. Sorry, it's what is Susan saying? Is there a diet can help you? So I'm going to answer that later. So a lot of times people criticize and attack you because of their own fears. Think about a dinner table. Look at your family members. For those of you who are very keen to reject a lot of the changes you've been making, right? Making comments. Think about, and I'm curious to know this if you guys have experienced this as well. So share this if you have. Do you feel that many of them who attack you are the ones who need the changes the most? Do you find that? And I can tell you that changing a diet is one of the hardest things a lot of people find, especially those people who are addicted to sugar, dairy, and gluten, right? And they binge on that, and it has a specific impact on the brain. Did you guys know that? Andrea is saying yes. Did you guys know that when it comes to gluten and dairy, it impacts the same part of the brain as morphine does? It's a painkiller. And so it's really fascinating to know that, you know, when the more people are addicted to these foods, the harder it is to get off them. That's why they perceive it impossible to get off these foods, right? Well, but here's the thing. It's when we fear something, a lot of times that's when we attack another person. It's the projection that starts happening, right? The classic example is a cheating husband who accuses his wife of cheating when he's the one cheating, right? So it's the same thing, you know, these patterns just have different faces, as in face, right? Different phases, and they manifest in different ways, but the core root of all of these problems is the same, and that is fear. Fear and knowing that they should be making the changes because they would benefit from them. Instead, they project that fear on you. What can you do? I mean, that's, you know, if you're not a psychologist, it's kind of hard to play that game. But what I would recommend for you to do is to bring a lot of compassion for people like that. You know, I just had an experience of I provided wrong address. I had to call up USPS, not the breast service. And I'm speaking to this guy. He's somewhere from the South. You can hear he's grossly obese. Like he can hardly breathe. You know, like his breath is like that. And he keeps coughing. But it's not a cough like a flu cold kind of cough, but it's, you know, like a very sickly cough of a person who's incredibly unhealthy. His breathing pattern, I mean, I could tell, and his mental acuity was just totally not there. And my heart just goes to that. And I had the hardest time. I talked to him for 45 minutes just to change the address where I send it to. That's all I wanted to do, something that should be done in 3 minutes. It took us 45 minutes to get over that, you know, all the processes that he had to forms and whatever he had to fill up, you know, that's what happens when you deal with the government, right? But my point is that it's, you know, the old me, I think, would have just gotten pissed off and be like, to hell with that. I have no time for this, and just put the phone down and called again, right? But, you know, I started thinking about it. He is just a man who really is so sick, right? And that all of that comes out the way it came out. So I think bringing a lot of compassion to a conversation with someone can be super powerful. Another thing that I found really super helpful is to really become the example of inspiration for other people. So, you know, one of the things that we do is we all have a tendency to do, and that includes me, includes a lot of my friends who are practitioners, amazing practitioners. Here's the irony of it, right? I have friends who have, like, you know, really groundbreaking results with patients, with themselves, with their own health. And then they have parents and sisters and brothers and cousins and family members who have these very illnesses. And when they want to help them, they can't. It just lands flat. It doesn't resonate at all. Friends and family do not listen to us. That's just a fact of life. It's more likely that a stranger will take our advice in the internet forum, somebody who you have never met, you probably never will. They take your advice much faster than your own family member. So do not preach at the table. Do not say to people, well, if you get off gluten, you can actually get pregnant, right? You're having a problem there, get off gluten and get off dairy. Don't do that. People, first it's embarrassing, and I've seen people doing that before. Instead, I feel like walk your talk and be the shining example of the perfect person you want to be. And it doesn't have to be perfect, right? But it's just any changes that start happening to you. So for example, you turn up at Christmas, right? At a family, and people go, you turn up at a party, and people go like, wow, your skin is you're glowing, and you look like you've lost 10 pounds, and your eyes are so bright, your hair is so healthy, what have you done? That's your opening to talk about stuff. So live the example that you want to be for other people. If you're still having a lot of health problems, if you're still binging on sugar, if you're still having, a lot of issues going on, it's hard to be that shining example to somebody else, right? I stopped talking. True example, my sister had skin cancer 4 years ago. She was diagnosed. My first response was to move into giving a lot of advice, and that was a terrible mistake because she completely shut down. And, instead I called my friend who was also dealing with cancer, and she said to me, first thing, do not give advice, right? And it really made huge change. Only when she started seeing a lot of really great results that I've been having in a community of women that I attract, then it has really made a huge difference. So be the example you want to be. And the second point is, thank you, Sandy. She's saying so good. Another point I want to bring in, and so tell me at the end of this conversation, tell me which ones would you want to try with your own family members. You can try many of them. I don't know whether you're taking notes. There's quite a lot of them, but I'll post an article I wrote actually about that. Another thing to do is you inspire people with your own food, right? I think you guys here are very considerate. I tend to attract like very proactive and smart women, and so I feel like I don't need to tell you this, but just in case you may be sending this to somebody who's listening to this now, do not show up at the dinner party, especially during the season now, when you have a lot of food restrictions without bringing something with you. That's just not cool. And especially if that person is still going the traditional route of, everything is loaded with sugar, everything's got gluten, everything's got dairy, right? Things that you can't eat. Bring your own food. I mean, that's the best thing to do, right? And inspire people with this really healthy food, yet that can be delicious. One of the biggest perceptions that people have is that healthy food cannot be tasty, right? I still remember that, many years ago, like having dinner parties over in when I lived in Seattle and New York, and I'll have like this bunch of friends coming over, and I love to cook and I love to host. I'm a good host, and I love to entertain. And people will come and say, wow, this was really good. And, and it's so healthy, right? And there was this, like, I don't know where this came from, but there's like this perception that when the food is healthy, it can't be tasty. Debunk that. Totally debunk that. And make something really delicious, 2-3 dishes, bring it over. And that's what's going to turn people on, going like, I think I can do this. I can do this. Like, if you say that this pie has no gluten, if you say these cookies have no grains, I can do this. So become that inspiration for other people just by doing and not talking. So I'm gonna just cover maybe 2 more. It's, if it becomes really obnoxious to a point where you feel like you're really getting so much judgment that it's just unbearable, right? And you try all these other tools and it's just not working for you. Somehow, like, it's still getting to you and it's just not, it's just not working. I would do a little bit of a checklist and check in with yourself and ask, what other things are they judging me for? You know, because the truth is, when somebody is really judgmental and they are not responsive, you've asked them for help, you validated their emotions, right? You brought a really delicious meal, right? You gave them a context, give them context, right? Like, look, autoimmune disease, targeted nutrition, and somebody's still attacking you, right? Here's the thing, you know, maybe a sense of compassion. If you really have a big heart and a lot of compassion, you say, you know, that's just the way she is. Okay, you know, that maybe you can deal with that. Some people can't. And one of the things that I have found is for people who judge us for our nutritional decisions, right? As long as we are not a pain in the butt and bring our own food and, you know, are cool about things. When somebody overly judges us for things, the question is, what else are they judging us for? And what I had found is that if somebody's overly judgmental over food, they become judgmental about everything else. Your job, how you raise the kids, what you earn, where you live, you know, your choice of partners. I mean, everything becomes a judgment. And then you might want to use this as a filter and say, how much time do I want to spend with that person? You know, some people are just toxic. And if you have no sense of, if you can't create a kind of shelter around yourself with those tools I talked about, compassion and all of that, then just it's maybe time to reevaluate your relationship with that person and avoid them as much as possible. I have found that, and it has been super helpful in my own journey. And I avoid, including family members who are toxic, I just don't go and see them because I find myself just being really drained. And that drains my adrenals, and I'm very protective of my adrenals because historically I've always had a lot of problems with them. Yeah, so one more last thing is, you know, last point I think I want to talk about today, and share with me which ones are you going to be doing, but also which ones, what have you tried? That's another question for you guys to think about. What have you tried that has worked with your family members in difficult situations, conversations like that? You know, the last thing I want to say is be selfish just this one time. And what I mean by that is, you know what I mean. It's not like being selfish. It's just about, I find that as women, we are natural givers. And we give and we give and we give all the time, right? And we do things to please others. We cook because of what everybody likes. We choose the places that everybody wants to go. We are such pleasers by nature. Most women are, because we are nurturers. The problem with that is that there is nothing left for you. And when the mom is sick, the kids are not going to be happy. When the mom is sick, the partner is not going to be happy. When the mom is sick, or you are sick, if you're not a mom, sorry, but you know, if the woman is sick, you know, her friends are going to suffer. If you are sick, your job is going to suffer, right? And so what I mean by being selfish is to really set the boundaries very clearly, that if during this holiday season, if continuing eating well is your priority, focus on that and honor that with yourself. Forget about everybody else, because it's your decisions. The power is within you to make that decision and really hold on to that and don't give in just to please others. One of the problems with pleasing also, furthermore, is it brings me to another point, and that is the fear of not being liked because we are not pleasing. Oh, well, if I make that pie without gluten, you know, is my husband gonna love me the same? Are my kids gonna not, the kids are not gonna like it, and hence they're not gonna love me, right? Drop that. That's not the way to get somebody's love, but pleasing them constantly, right? So, especially when it comes to your nutrition, your diet, which is so instrumental to your well-being, you know, putting on that boundary is really, really important. So I hope this was helpful for you, and just post there, what are some of the things you're going to be doing going into the holiday season that's going to help you, you think, or you might want to try with your family members, you know, that might make a little bit of a difference. And I'm going to take a sip of a drink. I'm drinking my Tulsi tea. You can't see it because it's a white mug, but I talked about the Tulsi, Tulsi, or holy basil. It's a wonderful tea that also helps with, it's a nervine, and it's and an adaptogen, so it really helps support the adrenals as well. Okay, I don't see any comments coming in. Ask for help, Andrea is saying. Yeah, nice one. That can be a really powerful one. Yeah, so if you're listening on replay, then just post your comment down below. One more thing I want to ask you for support. Now I want to ask you for help. Is that if you feel like these calls and the things I talk about can be helpful to somebody, to another one of 3 other women that you think are gonna benefit from these calls, because they struggle with hormones, they struggle with menopause, they struggle with perimenopause. Their hormones are all over the place, they have adrenal fatigue, they have thyroid issues. Tag them down below and tell them about this calls so that they can join us the next time. All they have to do is just like the page on Facebook, and that's it. And then they're gonna, you know, they're gonna get notifications when it's live again. All right, you guys. I hope this was helpful for you. I want to wish you a really great December. I hope this is going to be the time when you can kind of start really slowing down. That's what my team and I are doing. Really slowing down, kind of start planning a little bit more, you know, and planning for next year, taking it easy, taking a lot of deep breaths, not indulging sugar too much, but yet having fun. And yeah, and I will definitely see you in January. It's gonna be, I don't know what date it's gonna be yet, but you'll see that for sure on Facebook. We're gonna make an announcement. All right, you guys, thank you for all the wonderful comments, wonderful information Susan is saying. That's awesome. Yeah, so I'll see you guys in January.